Thanks, Robin, for the introduction. So today about how to grow your traffic from Google Discover. But before I start, I'm curious who is a news publisher because I talked with some people last night, but not to everybody. So can you hands if you are a news publisher? Okay. Um, and I guess most people are from the Netherlands and Spain. Um, Latin America, I heard. Mexico, Argentina. Any other yeah. uh, Argentina. Ah, perfecto. También hablo español, entonces si después quieres hablar en español también. So how to grow your traffic from Google Discover? As many publishers know, it's the fastest growing traffic source for news publishers. But let me start with a personal intro. So as Robin already mentioned, I've been a news publisher myself for Football Premier. It's actually like a competitor of Soccer News from Max. You saw it also on his screen of his presentation. And being news publisher also led to starting Newsifier, which is a specialized CMS built for news publishers. And we were founded in 2019. And currently we have over 400 websites running on Newsifier. And basically every frustration I had myself as a news publisher, we used to build a CMS that's really specialized for news publishers and that solves all the pain points for news publishers. And also the good thing, of course, because we focus only on news publishers. So all the things that I ever wanted to build while I was working at myself as a news publisher, now we can build because we can spread the cost over many publishers. So why does Google Discover matters? I think most news publishers know because they can see the traffic growing from Google Discover every year. It's the fastest growing traffic source. A lot of times already bigger than search and Facebook for most publishers. Although it's not tracked in analytics from Google itself, so that's why sometimes people underestimate it. And now it's also rolling out on desktop. Google started rolling it out in some regions. So basically, if you go to the Google search page, and then you will see then below that also on desktop, like all personalized news feed. So yeah, it's becoming more and more important. Where to see Google Discover traffic? Because the weird thing is that Google hides it in Google Search Console. You can't see it inside Google Analytics itself. So basically, you go to the Search Console and you go open the Performance tab and click on Discover. Then you will see your Discover traffic. And this is an example of one of our publishers, and you see like a lot of them already have way more traffic from Google Discover than from Google Search, which I think will only get more because Google Search is rolling out AI overviews. So basically, when you search on Google Search, you then see first like a part that's reserved for AI answers. So probably it will only get more important. A pro tip and is that we made our own analytics system for news publishers that's built inside the CMS. So you see inside the CMS, you see exactly the live traffic you get, and you can also then see where your visitors are coming from. Like yellow, for example, is Google Discover. Red is search. So we basically built our own analytics because especially with the transition to GA4 from Google Analytics became a bit of a mess for news publishers. And I was a big fan of analytics, but I can't find any reports that I want. And they don't track Google Discover inside analytics from Google itself. And so it's built inside our CMS. And it's also, you can also have it as a separate page, like you see here. And we are about to launch a WordPress plugin. So even if your website runs on WordPress, you can download the plugin, and you basically have a really good analytics dashboard specialized for news publishers, which also tracks traffic from Google Discover. A bit about how does Google personalize your Discover feed. It basically uses all the information it has from you. So which videos you watch on YouTube, your activity in the browser, your location. For example, a lot of times I notice as well if I move from one location to another, then suddenly my whole feed is different. So I live in Barcelona, but then when I go back to Netherlands, they think I'm an expat in Amsterdam, and I suddenly get expat news for expats in Netherlands. Also, of course your search history. So it's really like a personalized news feed, basically like a Facebook feed, because there's a big distinction between Discover and search. And it's more Discover is more like Facebook actually. Where do users see Discover? I mainly get that questions from iPhone users because it's not so obvious where you see it. On Android, just one swipe to the left, and you see the Discover feed. So the funny thing, a lot of people are using Discover without knowing they use Discover. For example, my mom, when I was at home, I saw my mom using Discover, and she didn't. Of course, she doesn't know it's Discover, but many people use it all the time without knowing it. So with Android, it's really obvious, but also in the Google app on iPhone, and like I said, it's also rolling out on desktop. How to go your Discover traffic. Learn how Discover works, but I'm explaining in this presentation. Optimize it and then grow it, which can be pretty obvious, but still you see it going wrong a lot. For example, a lot of journalists, they write really literally what's happening, but basically they give away the story already in the headline, and we see in the data as well that doesn't really work in Discover. For example, if a journalist would ask Messi, "Hey, are you thinking about going back to play in Argentina?" And he will say, "No, I will not play." Then you could also say Messi speaks about possible return to play in Argentina, which is a bit clickbait, but it's still true because he spoke out about it, and that works way better. We saw it in data than just like literally say what's happening. And of course, it's a balance, but the same with images. Boring images with objects, they have a way lower click-through rate than images with people and emotions and some smart edits, because the people are scrolling, and when they see something that grabs their attention, and then they do a click, and then they are inside your article. Because also for Google basically wants us to use Discover as much as possible. So they always say they're really against clickbait, but in the end they just want a lot of clicks. So the CTR we find is one of the main levers for the amount of Discover traffic. So make writing headlines the core strategy. I think a big part is about training your staff on writing the right headlines. And like I touched on earlier, I think a lot of news publishers they have journalists working for them who are really kind of afraid of clickbait. But we see it, we see, at least if you want to grow your Discover traffic, it's a really good strategy to do a lot of testing with headlines. For example, in our CMS we have an A/B testing built in, so you can always put an A and a B headline, and the system measures which one gets the most clicks, and that's the one that will win. When I was a news publisher myself, we also use that A/B testing to do like a weekly review, to basically go sit with all the editors and see basically what works for which kind of headlines get the most clicks. There's also, and AI is also of course really interesting for that. We've built in an AI suggestions feature. So when you write the article, you can hit a button and then it gives optimized headlines for Discover, which helps as well for the editor, because then it saves them time thinking about the right headline. Yeah, and I think the fifth one is also important, that reward editors that are consistently writing good headlines. When I was a news publisher, we made it almost like a gamification in a sense, that we made like a top five of which writers had the most page views over the last week, and you really saw that the kind of they're starting a kind of competition element, which worked really well for us. Yeah, about the headlines, click-worthy, not clickbaity. It's a thin line. But I would say don't be afraid to test the limits. Yeah, spark curiosity, write conversationally, not because this is the same as with images. If people really need to understand the headline and it's written too difficult, then it's also we see that they scroll through. When it's more conversational, how you speak to a friend, it works way better. The same with emotion. In the end, we are emotional beings, so emotion works really well. The same in images and in headlines. How to write optimized headlines for Google Discover. Here are some examples. For example, Haaland injured in Manchester City game. Tells already the story. It could still be good because it doesn't say how long he's injured. If it would say it's injured for 2 months, it will be worse. Then the headline is improved. It's really on the edge of being really clickbaity. So, but you see that those things still work. The same with Samsung Galaxy 10 released. It's boring, no emotion. And when you put like the Samsung Galaxy 10 is changed in game, here's why. You want to make people want to know more. It's always what I say to journalists, like who are kind of afraid to make too spectacular headlines. It's a shame if you write a long article. You put a lot of effort in writing an article and nobody clicks because then nobody will see it. Basically, it's more like the marketing part of your article. It's not like that people will hate you if you write that headline. The same as the other ones, company layoffs, and who is behind it. Because it also builds tension. And the other ones, I think, speak for themselves. So it's all about building curiosity and emotional connection, emotional spark, basically. A real world example of one of our publishers. As you can see, that the ones basically all the headlines that work well. This were like the top Google Discover articles. Almost every headline is kind of is not giving you the whole story. The only one that's giving the whole story maybe is 4, but still doesn't give everything away. And as you see, it's really on the edge of being clickbait. Maybe some is clickbait, but the thing is that what I said earlier, that people always say, especially people that work like the official statements from Google say, don't use clickbait. At the end, we see in all the numbers that it works well. So it's and of course it's a thin line. You should not say something you not make a promise in the headline that you don't act on in the article itself. That's kind of that clickbait, of course, that people don't like. That's also when I was news publisher myself. That was like the red line. You should not say something that people are like, oh wow, something really big happened, and then it was nothing. Basically, you would say star player from Barcelona got injured, and then it's someone from the second team. Then people get angry and they don't come back. But if it's good to play with that. Pick the right images. Yeah, use high quality images. The smaller side of the images should be at least 1200 pixels. People work better than objects. This is, for example, an example of the CTR. Emotion works better than boring. And I think also a tip that I see that works well to put already a caption on the image. Why? Because not many people do it, so you stand out. Basically, you want to stand out in the big feed of Discover. It's basically the same as Facebook. That's something that works well. And the more emotion, the better. You be so some publishers they make like they make but they paste like one image on top of the other with different people. They have an overlay that if people scrolling, they think, hey, what's happening there? And then they already has their attention. And yeah, that's something that works really well. This also, for example, this was from a client of ours that has news about Bitcoin, and this was also the image that led to the was the image of the top scoring article in Google Discover, and it was also about that Bitcoin is going down, but of course, this is emotion Bitcoin, so yeah, that worked well. Another one is people ask how does Discover work for a news publisher perspective, and it gives you authority on certain topics. So it's important to know what are your top topics that you get authority on, and to double down on that content. A good way to find it out is, for example, to use ChatGPT. Just make an export from your Google Search Console and use, for example, the following prompt. This is like an example of one of our Belgium clients. And especially with the new model from the new model from GPT-03 works really well. It really kind of digs deep into what topics and what subtopics work and what kind of things work. For example, this is a men's blog, but at one point we did an analysis for them, and it find out that all their articles about mobility and traffic, for example, about number plates, about money, like for example, articles like what does a bus driver make a month, and that word, and at one point every article they were writing about what does from a bakery made went viral basically. So it's really funny to see that if you know your topics, that you can really use that to really skyrocket your skyrocket your Discover traffic. This is also something that we're going to build inside our own analytics tool. That basically you get all the time, you get analysis on where do you have your biggest authority and what you should publish more about if you want to grow your Discover traffic. It is about improving transparency. It's a simple thing that you can do, but it still helps. I have a good about us page, author bios, and a contact page because Google wants to know, who is behind this publisher. We still sometimes still see some publishers that are not doing this, and that of course it hurts their traffic. So simple but effective. Also an important one, because sometimes we get new publishers that say, hey, I want to start a website, and can you guarantee me that I will get into Discover within the first 2 months? I always say that's impossible, because Google also really looks at the authority of your domain. So how many incoming links do you have to your domain? So yeah, that's also something to check and really work on, especially if you're a new website. But also as an existing website, it's good to do a little check. You have these free tools from MOZ, and Ahrefs to check that. This and all the other tips will have a suboptimal effect without good page speed and core web vitals. That's also, we as Newsifier, something that we're focusing on nonstop. To make sure page speed is always optimized and the core web vitals are optimized. For example, we had one publisher we migrated a year ago, and he had really bad page speed and really bad core web vitals. And because of that, he had really low traffic from Google Discover. But he had a really good authority. The authority of his domain was really high. So when we migrated him, basically we unleashed all that Discover traffic, because now I think he gets so it gets about 3 million page views from there. Well, before it was almost none. So yeah, I think if this is not optimized, this is the first thing you think you should look at, because yeah, but without this, it's hard to, even if you do everything correct, it's hard to really really increase your discover traffic. Also like a no-brainer, have like a special news sitemap. That's something that really helps in discover traffic. Another one, a lot of time overlooked, is to have a newsletter. Because if you have a newsletter, you have constantly returning traffic, and that helps a lot. Because when Google sees that people keep returning to the website, it's also like a ranking signal for them. That's also why in our system we built a feature for sending newsletters. So it's really, you can set up a newsletter within I think 15 minutes basically. So you don't have to go to MailChimp and do the export import. One of the reasons we built that is because in the past, when I was a news publisher, we always wanted to start a newsletter, but then it's first you have to export to MailChimp or to another program. Then you have to import, and people unsubscribe. You have to sync the list, and then when you want to market your newsletter, the best way to market newsletter to increase your subscribers is have a good form, subscribe form inside the articles. So basically now we made a system that it can automatically pull your most read articles and send automatically, and you can make a newsletter per topic. For example, when you want to have like a newsletter about Messi, you can just have a Messi newsletter which pulls the most read Messi news articles, and then also only markets it within the articles with a tag with Messi basically. So in a sense, you can have like 15 newsletters running on autopilot, and that also works really well with to grow your discover traffic, because you will be seen more as an authority. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think it's good to connect on LinkedIn, and also to the publishers that we can offer you free SEO audits, so you can at least make sure that the basics are right.
Well, actually, before we get started with the questions, I did quickly want to add that Google Discover, at least from an advertising and monetization perspective, is hugely interesting, because we see that it's the value of it is so much higher than, for example, social media traffic. So that's actually one of the reasons why we invited Gerard here, and actually, well, hopefully it's going to be of some help for you as well to increase your Discover traffic, because it should really influence positively your website monetization. So, Gerard, we prepared some questions, but I'm going to fire away with one that we did not prepare. Why is Google Discover, is Google Discover only for news publishers? Or can it also be maybe like more evergreen content?
No, it's also evergreen content. I think it's mostly focused at news, but also evergreen content. Basically, Google just wants to show you content that you want to see. So it's basically, if you would watch a lot of videos about cooking, and you have something content that fits into that, then it can also be included. Although it does want you to regularly publish. So if you would have a blog, you publish once a month, I think it's almost impossible to be featured in Google Discover. Yeah.
Okay. And for example, does it actually need to be a proper written content? I'm looking, for example, at Stefan with Pro Cycling Stats.
Yeah.
They obviously don't really write the same content that a news publisher writes, but they still publish news. Would they get featured in Discover?
And then how often do they publish? How do you publish? Yeah. No. I think that will be hard. Yeah.
Well, would be hard. Okay, great. Okay. Let's see. Questions that we did prepare. So one of the steps that you mentioned is adding the Google Publisher the Google Publisher Sensor. So in your experience, does this have a real impact on the visibility in Discover?
No, I think it's more like it's more like a supporting thing. It's not that it's not a game changer, basically.
No, not a game changer. Okay. But it will give you additional insights. Hmm. All right. And you did also mention that the Google Discover outperforms search and search and Facebook and traffic for many publishers. What would you really say are like the top three tips that are like the quick wins that bring them produce the biggest change?
Yeah, I would say then optimize your websites technically, core web vitals, speed. Really, really focus on your headlines. And also know where you have authority, because I think a lot of publishers don't know on which topics or subtopics they have the best authority. So I think that I'd say those three, yeah.
Okay, good. And well, some of you might already know this, maybe not some, but we do have a partnership, I'd say, where Refinery can quite easily integrate with Newsifier. How do you experience this partnership that we have?
Yeah,
Does
good.
that add value to your publishers?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I see a lot of publishers that I've been moving to Refinery, and they're happy, and when they are happy, we are happy, because they need to use advertising money to pay us. So
Yeah, nice. And well, final question that I had prepared at least is, since you've been working in publishing so long, you have your own CMS. If hypothetically, if you were to do it all over again and basically try to become the number one publisher within whatever segment you choose, how would you do it?
yeah, I think I would not start from scratch, uh, but acquire like a smaller publisher that can be optimized. Um, or like if you start from scratch, at least invest in Facebook, because you need to for example, start to build a Facebook audience, because you need to start somewhere. It's not that Google starts ranking you from nowhere, in a sense. So you need to have some incoming traffic. It's not that good, especially now with new websites. They don't get indexed so easily if you don't have any traffic source. And I would really work data driven, and with AI is also what we are now really focusing on with our CMS. Really provide a lot of data and do AI analysis on that data. That's how I work myself as news publisher. Really like working based on data, and do like weekly reviews with editors, and really make a process out of it. That's getting now easier if you have all data available, and if you can do AI analysis on it, because then you have basically like full-time data analysts analyzing your data and giving tips of what you should do, basically. Because a lot of times it's like a lot of times editors do what they think is best, but it's not always. If you look at the data, it's not always the best. I mean, it depends, of course. Depends if you want to. Your goal is to increase traffic.
Yeah. So it's difficult if you're a publisher and you're passionate about what you're writing about.
No, of course. It's always a mix. Eh? It's not that you just shoot. Like Max also told it's all also about building a brand. So I would do like a mix of kind of the clickbaiting article and then like background articles. So to get the clickbait articles to get people in, and the other ones to love your brands. But I also think it's also like a risk to have a kind of boring content on your website. For example, with when I was a publisher myself with Football Premier, one of the rules we don't want boring content, because if you scroll through it, you need to think like, I want to read this, and that, and you don't want a situation where people just scroll further and they stop. They stop at the first article. This is why we also had a pretty good page view per visit, because every article at least needs to have a certain threshold. Because that's why, for example, also in our CMS we have a top 5 and a flop 5 feature, so you can also see which are your worst scoring articles. And that also, for example, when I was news publisher, we always went through the flop 5. So, okay, stop writing these articles because nobody wants to read them. It hurts our brand, and it hurts basically the page per visit.
Sweet. Just looking at the audience again. Yes, we finally got a question.
I got a question about the Google Discover. How important is the speed? Like how, if you we publish about cycling news,
Yeah.
there are multiple competitors. to be the first, does it have a big impact? Can you easily be second or third? Or
No, I guess it has a big impact if you're writing the same angle. What sometimes people just do a different angle, and that doesn't matter because then you kind of still the first with that angle. But if you have the same angle, I think it's important because you first we see it in the data, for example, because with the analytics tool, you see when it gets picked up by Google Search and then Discover. Normally, you see it getting picked up by Google Search a little bit, and that's like a signal then to go to Google Discover like half an hour later or something. So, yeah, I think it's important if it's the same news. Yeah, yeah. I mean, in a sense, of course, it's good because it sends a lot of traffic. But I always say, it's also good to build up your own direct traffic, your own online, your own traffic. That's why I always advise, to also build up newsletters, have an active user base. There's a lot of features for our CMS are also based on that, because Discover, it's also like a dangerous traffic source because it's it gives you a lot of traffic, but I can really go up and down. Yeah, so I think it's a hard question to answer if it really helps publishers, to get more ad revenue, like compared to Meta, but
It must be in the interest of Google, though.
no, and of course,
Yeah, they don't make any money.
No, exactly. And I think now also, I guess also with the launch of all these AI apps, which people are using more and more, I also have the feeling that they were focusing more again on news. But like I said, it's dangerous to be too dependent on Facebook, and Google, because it's still not your own traffic. That's also why we help publishers to grow their SEO traffic and social traffic, but at the same time, we also help them to build up their own user base. You wanna start a website with us? I said you want to start a website with us.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, good answer. I would have said like 2 years ago, I would say showbiz, but now I think it's a really congested area. I think I would do like a mix of something with a high ad revenue, like simple racing, for example, but then like the higher segment, basically. Like I would do something specialized with higher ad revenue, like maybe financial news or things like that. Yeah, because then there's less competition, and high ad revenue. So I would choose a sector which is less kind of optimized in a sense. Because, for example, we look at football news. Football publishers are really competing a lot, and they know exactly which headlines to write, etc. But other sectors might be less work maybe less like based on data and writing the best headlines. So I would look into a sector like that. Yeah.
Right. Well, thanks, Gerard. Thanks so much for that discussion.
Thank you.
I'm sure it's going to continue throughout the day. It's not going to be the last of it. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for that. And
yes, thanks.
Let's keep going.